So as I said, now I have some breaking news I want to tell you about. It's out of Puerto Rico. Crowds of demonstrators are flooding the streets of Old San Juan, demanding the immediate resignation of the governor, Ricardo Rosselló. Calls for Rosselló to step down began after nearly 900 pages of leaks from his online chats obtained by Puerto Rico's Center for Investigative Journalism were published over the weekend. The chats were leaked days after the FBI arrested former administration officials in a corruption scandal. So that's the backdrop. That's the story. Leila Santiago joins us now on the phone from Old San Juan. Leila, thank you very much. What are these protests like? What's going on here?
Well, Don, I want to make sure you understand we are here, but we're struggling with a signal. That's why I'm calling into you. And what I'm seeing on the streets of San Juan, I'm seeing anger, just raw frustration. People who say they are fed up and things are really heating up. We've seen some pretty tense moments. I know we have some live video from our affiliates here at sort of the barricaded area right in front of La Fortaleza, which is the mansion, the governor's mansion.
We can see those pictures as you're talking about it, Leila. Go on.
Great, right. So you can see exactly what's happening at this hour in front of where the governor lives. This is a growing protest. This isn't the first one. We saw something similar Monday, but this is growing in number. And I want to show you what we saw when we got right up to the barricade. I mean, such an intense moment when protesters were very angry, yelling, chanting for the governor to resign. And then there was a bit of a heated exchange where a police officer tried to grab one of the protesters. Shortly after that, batons came out and things started to get thrown. I understand that there have been several similar moments to that this evening. And as we speak, or shortly just a few minutes ago, we saw that debris was also being thrown and police had their shields. So the protests are growing, the anger is growing, and the calls from Puerto Ricans on this island and off this island are now growing. The words I am hearing repeatedly from people: disrespect, indignation, deceit, and as I've mentioned, resign. Don.
Leila, talk to me about what were in those leaked texts that people are so upset about.
Well, in those leaked texts, you see the governor and sort of his inner circle, a total of 12 people going back and forth. In it, they have some pretty choice words for women, words that I will not repeat, some remarks that are homophobic. They talked about being able to fool their own people. They made light of bodies that were essentially piling up after Hurricane Maria. And I think that this is beyond the chats. That's what a lot of people here have told me. This is about the corruption that we've seen with the federal arrests, about the chats, and that many people sort of find themselves reflected in these insults here. Many people say he spoke poorly of people in the country, on the countryside. I'm from the countryside. He spoke poorly, or they spoke poorly of women. I am a woman. So I think people here, this goes beyond some leaked chats. This is about corruption running rampant on this island. And there is a big concern that on this island, those that are most vulnerable, those that are still rebuilding 2 years, nearly 2 years after Hurricane Maria, could be affected because there's some concern of this having an impact on federal and disaster aid coming to this island.
Are you seeing anything being thrown as we look at these pictures from Old San Juan? Are you seeing, these are live pictures we're looking at, by the way, Leila, are you seeing anything being thrown? Describe to us the scene again, please.
So when I have backed off a little bit for safety reasons, Don, but from when I was there and what I'm seeing, I mean, we saw sort of a festive environment in some locations, people singing and dancing. But as you got closer to the mansion, to La Fortaleza, that's when things started to heat up and things became more and more tense. As we were getting closer, people were telling us, careful, don't get too close because they could lash out at you. And as we got closer, protesters there, you could see they were wearing masks. You could see they were holding up signs. You could see they were yelling. And Don, this is yelling. This is anger. I mean, they were yelling with passion, calling on the governor to resign. One of the common chants that I heard was, "We are not afraid. We are more than you." And those chants were directed straight at the mansion and at the police force standing guard at that very barricade, the barricade that is down the street of the gates that lead to the governor's mansion. So there's a bit of a back and forth. They have heated moments. I heard some of the protesters urging others not to throw things, to be peaceful, to not give them a reason to attack. And I also saw police that were talking straight to us, saying, no, everyone must back up and be at this distance. So, Monday there were some tensions that escalated into tear gas. And tonight we're seeing a bit of a repeat, but on a bit of a bigger scale, I would say, because these are very large crowds. Tonight we saw the celebrities of Puerto Rico show up. Ricky Martin, Residente, Bad Bunny, and so they are putting a call to come together as one island and demand the resignation of Puerto Rico's governor, who says he will not resign. Don.
The latest from the governor. What do we know?
He has said that, I actually just checked in with his office a few minutes ago. Actually, he is standing by that he will not resign. He says he is elected for this position, and he will continue to do the work he was elected to do, despite what is happening on the streets of Old San Juan and in other parts of this island and beyond.
Leila Santiago, on top of the breaking news for us covering these live protests that are going on. As you can see, crowds of demonstrators are there remaining on the streets of near Puerto Rico's capital, demanding the immediate resignation of their governor at this hour. A large group faced off against police. They just overturned some barriers. They have been throwing things, we're told. Police and riot gear, as you can see, about 10 feet away with helmets and shields. And you can see the crowds there again live. This is coming to us from Old San Juan. And our Laura Santiago on top of it. We'll continue to update you on this situation. Leila Santiago. We'll continue to update you on the situation as we get it. Thank you, Leila. I appreciate it. Stay safe, okay? Now I want to get back to our breaking news. Now you see the pictures there live from San Juan in Puerto Rico. As you see demonstrators on the street, and also you see police countering those demonstrators. Leila Santiago is on the phone from Old San Juan with the breaking news on these protests. Leila, what's going on? Fill us in.
Hey there, Don. So things really escalated very quickly. All of a sudden, we saw things being thrown in both directions. Police released tear gas. If you can hear it in the background, they continue to do so, and people just ran. I mean, we saw people climbing gates, trying to get out of what was just a stampede of the Puerto Ricans protesting, demanding the governor's resignation. Excuse me. And they are continuing to push back the crowd, pushing them far.
Leila, stand by. Why don't you stand by 1 second? Let me fill them in, and then you can catch her, get some water or something. Here, this is what's happening. So Leila's there on the scene. She has been pushed back to a place of safety. These crowds of demonstrators flooded into the streets of Old San Juan. They are demanding the immediate resignation of the governor, Ricardo Rosselló. They want him to step down. And it all began after 900 or so pages of leaked chats from the governor, from the private Telegram messenger group, obtained by Puerto Rico's Center for Investigative Journalism, were published over the weekend. And the chats were leaked days after the FBI arrested former administration officials in the corruption scandal. So now you have these people who are out on the streets. They are demanding that the governor step down now. And you've got Leila, who was in the middle of all of this, and again is now at a point a safe distance away, who's reporting for us. Leila, take it away. What do you have?
So let me tell you exactly where we are. We are about a block away. We have sort of taken refuge in a kind neighbor's home, where even in his home, we can still feel the tear gas that was just dispersed by the police that were guarding La Fortaleza, which is the governor's mansion. Again, what we saw was a stampede of people running and yelling all sorts of profanities and anger at the police who were there. I mean, the police had shields and gas masks, and while many of these protesters were prepared for that and had their faces covered, they were running. And I just, every chance I get, I want to be clear to make sure I give them a voice in what they say this is about. They say this is more than about chats being leaked or FBI arrests. This is a culmination, a week of things brewing and years of things brewing. And they say enough with the corruption. The governor's got to go. But the governor, Ricardo Rosselló, says that's not happening.
Leila Santiago with our breaking news coming to you from Old San Juan in Puerto Rico. We'll continue right after this break. We'll be right back.
Fox News Alert, we're hearing about a large number of protesters out in force again tonight against Puerto Rico's new progressive governor, Ricardo Rosselló. Rosselló's government thrown into chaos after sexist, homophobic, and profane text messages were revealed. Jeff Paul is live on the scene for us. Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, Mike, this protest officially entering its 7th hour here in San Juan. And as you see behind me, the crowd out here still very fired up. Tens of thousands of people have been out here pretty much all day and night as they demonstrate right outside the governor's house. They've been chanting, playing music, as we've heard all throughout the night, singing as they try to get the simple message across loud and clear that they want the governor to resign. They've also had a boost today from musical stars like Ricky Martin and Bad Bunny, who were at the demonstration earlier in the evening. Now, there have been protests in previous days, some ending with some vandalism, rocks being thrown, and tear gas from police. But tonight, so far, no major clashes between protesters and police. 3 reported arrests, at least, for violating the perimeter that's around the governor's office. We also heard about maybe 1 possible injury, but that involved one of the protesters who was in the crowd with another protester. We're really not sure if the governor is actually inside his house tonight, but Mike, he remains steadfast that he is not going to resign. Mike?
Jeff Paul on the scene of a tense scene in San Juan. Jeff, thank you very much. Fox News Alert, a chaotic scene on the streets of San Juan, Puerto Rico. We had a live report there a short time ago from our correspondent Jeff Paul. Our team had to clear the immediate area for safety, but police are firing tear gas at protesters there in San Juan, all related to Puerto Rico's new progressive governor, Ricardo Rosselló. Rosselló's government thrown into chaos after those sexist, homophobic, and profane text messages were revealed. Clearly, the protesters want the government out. Brad Blakeman joining us, Fox News contributor. Brad, your thoughts on the scenes we're seeing there in San Juan tonight?
Well, things are certainly deteriorating quite rapidly. And now I think with your reporter on the ground having to retreat because of his safety and what is happening there, as we're seeing on the TV right now, things are getting ugly quick. And the governor has got a lot of responsibility for what you're seeing on the streets today, in addition to the corruption that we've seen in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is a hotbed, and we can only hope and pray that it doesn't turn violent.
When you see scenes like this being broadcast across America and perhaps around the world, is it a matter of time before the governor is ultimately out, Brad?
I think so. I mean, his actions post the revelations of his media, his social media, have not quelled things. They've put gas on the fire, and I think that his days are numbered.
Jeff Paul was live on the scene for us a few minutes ago, and he told us this has been going on for 6 or 7 hours. Clearly, as it gets later into the evening, it gets to be a more tense situation, hopefully not a violent situation, but clearly the folks there in Puerto Rico, a lot of them on the streets as we're approaching midnight, making their concerns known that they want this governor out. It'll be interesting to see what the rest of this evening brings, Brad, and perhaps what tomorrow looks like as well.
Right. We can only hope that the governor is able to calm the situation and not continue in the vein that he has in the last few days.
So we're looking at the scene there in San Juan, and of course the governor's offensive tweets and texts came out, and a lot of people taking to the street. This is a new progressive governor of Puerto Rico, and people on the street, police actively engaging with the protesters now. You see folks taking cover, our camera crew taking cover right now. There's Jeff Paul, our correspondent on the scene, who's just come in from what looks like a pretty dangerous scene on the streets there. A very tense situation in Puerto Rico tonight in San Juan, as a lot of protesters have been on the streets seeking their governor to resign after a controversial situation there. And the pictures are back there. Let's continue to look at the scene there. Brad, your thoughts as we're watching this? Looks like it's getting worse just in the last few minutes.
Well, we need some leaders in Puerto Rico other than the mayor to step up and speak and try and settle the situation down. This is not going to end, I think, without the mayor stepping down. And we're going to see it intensify, in my opinion, if something is not done and done quickly.
Our correspondent Jeff Paul is reconnected with us. Jeff, your thoughts as you're watching this situation escalate there on the ground?
Okay, it's got to be a phone or they won't let us do a live shot in here. They'd rather us be outside and die.
Okay, sounds like Jeff's getting reconnected with us. So we continue to look at the scenes there. San Juan, Puerto Rico, protesters on the streets seeking that the governor, controversial new progressive governor, they want him out. And a clash with police late into the evening after this protest has been going on for the better part of 6 or 7 hours. We've got a crew live on the scene. Jeff Paul, our correspondent, is there. And it looks like he's taking cover inside a building as the situation has gotten more tense. Jeff, what's the scene there? How bad has it gotten in recent moments?
Yeah, Mike, we just had to run inside a hotel.
Okay, breaking news.
Here, what's going on?
Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry. Your mic cut out briefly.
Oh, I'm just saying they're shooting tear gas outside, and we're also seeing protesters who are picking up potted trees and trying to make a wall in the street as police are firing tear gas down the street, anything they can pick up to throw down the way to sort of combat what the police are doing with the tear gas. That's what we're seeing right now. A lot of the crowd, much of the crowd, the tens of thousands of people that we saw, they have now dispersed. And we're smelling it, we're feeling it, and we're tasting the tear gas that is in the air that they continue to shoot to get this crowd to break up.
Jeff, was the escalation in the last few minutes from the police firing tear gas, or was it the protesters perhaps throwing things at the police that led to an escalation?
You know, Mike, we wrapped up our live shot with you where we talked about that there weren't any major clashes between police and protesters, and it seemed like the minute that we got done with our shot, we just heard a sound that sounded like tear gas. If you've ever been around protests, you can kind of tell what it sounds like, and then we started to smell it and hear it. So it's really unclear to know who escalated the situation first, but we do know that they had a barrier set up, and once those protesters started crossing the barrier in previous occasions, they would, do something about it. So I'm not sure if there was a protester who crossed the line or if they just started shooting tear gas at a certain time to get the crowd to leave. But that's what's happening right now, and much of this crowd has left.
Jeff Paul, live on the scene of a tense situation in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Jeff, our best to you and your team. Be safe. Our midnight heroes spring into action and jump right into the fire